The hot seat is the Women's Tennis Association. And for once, neither the ranks nor the salary are the source of the indignation. One of the game's most brilliant rising stars, Eala, surprised everyone by dragging them to court with a play that caught them off guard. A game that was meant to highlight her genius turned into a horror show, revealing the Pro Tour's unsightly underbelly. The activities on that clay were far more than just contentious. It was outright highway robbery, according to her lawyers. Now that one athlete has broken the code of silence, the entire world is riveted to the spectacle. Here's how the most explosive scandal to strike the women's circuit in 10 years started with a single contest. A long time before Eala became well-known, insiders were talking about her. Being from the Philippines, she had to live up to the high expectations of a country that was in dire need of a world champion. She became the first person from her archipelago to win the U.S. Open Junior crown when she was just 17 years old. That victory was more than just a trophy. It was a war declaration. Southeast Asia as a whole stood up and paid attention. Alex was merely revving her engine as her hometown erupted in celebration. But it's a meat grinder to go from the junior leagues to the professional ranks. That kind of crushing weight has caused the snapping of countless future stars. There are fierce competitors, extreme dangers, and no space for mistakes. Eala didn't flinch, though. She persevered through the difficult qualifying and fought off bodily discomfort to get up the standings, clawing through the challenger tiers. She was not given anything. She only became smarter after losing. She was beating on the gates of the top 50 in early 2025, and many commentators were placing large bets on her dominance. The Luxembourg Open, a typical WTA 250 tournament that was supposed to be merely another step up the ladder, then came around. She didn't care if the veteran she drew had a better seed. She was prepared. Her team had faith. It was supposed to be her coming-out celebration, according to the devoted admirers who traveled from Manila. The evidence that she wasn't just a one-hit wonder from the junior circuit and that she could compete with the big dogs. She had the hungry intensity you only get after giving up your youth, and she looked deadly as she stepped onto that court. It was a cracking serve. Laser guidance was used for the ground strokes. Playing like a woman possessed, she was in the zone. It appeared to be a script written in the stars for a while. However, there are no guarantees in the professional circuit. The events that transpired would not merely change Alex's course. It would rock the sport's very underpinnings. You see, forehands and backhands don't always decide a fight. Both juries and judges decide them. The gavel was on the verge of falling. How does a straightforward sporting event become the subject of a legal briefing? The specifics are completely insane, so fasten your seatbelt. Pure voltage was the first set. Like a grandmaster, Eala was using surgical strikes to dissect her opponent while controlling the geometry of the court. The audience was electrified as she seized it 6-4. In the bleachers, you could see the flags flying wildly. Videos of her winners had Twitter in a frenzy. Everyone had been promised the celebrity. The wheels began to tremble as the second set arrived. It began modestly. A dubious call here, an odd glance there. It appeared that EA painted the line. The official let out a yell. She looked perplexed as she observed the dirt scuff, but she remained silent. There's no point in wasting a challenge at this stage. It eventually turned into a pattern. Every close call and every 50-50 decision went against her. Second set, Game 5. The alley was spotless, but Alex blasts a forehand down it. The stadium held its breath. It was enjoyable. It must have been. The shriek escaped. Alex's fist pump turned into a look of complete amazement as she froze. She strode toward the chair and pointed to the spot of impact. Although she maintained her composure, there was no denying the steel in her voice. The line was caught by that. That's the mark. The referee hardly gave it a glance. Call stands. Eala promptly gave the signal for the review. What thousands of eyes had previously witnessed was validated on the large screen. The paint was kissed by the ball. The shot was legitimate. Yes, they changed their mind, but the poison was already in the blood. She had lost her groove. Her mind was racing, and the absurdity continued. It felt like a handicap match in the middle. She wasn't merely fighting the woman on the other side of the internet. She was opposing the system, an essential ace that would have guaranteed victory. Called out. Later, the tapes demonstrated that it nicked the edge. A serve that didn't receive a let call but rocked the net cord. The broadcasters themselves were beginning to inquire. It was becoming agitated in the stands. She was crumbling at the seams, Alex. From 3-6, she lost the set. It's one thing to lose. Another is being robbed. The atmosphere was thick enough to choke on by the time the decider began. Alex's nerves were fried, so she tried to reset and block out the static. Her opponent spotted blood in the water and took advantage of every pause. In the last frame, the breaking moment occurred between 4 and 5. Point down for the match. Alex serves. Seemingly inexplicably long. The return sails deep. Before the line judge ruled the ball good, Alex raised her arms in celebration of the deuce. She stopped. Beyond the baseline, it had landed a solid 3. No cheers came from the stands. They erupted in rage. Desperately, Alex marched to the net and looked down at the umpire. "Please, you must check that mark." His head was shaken by the chair. A chilly, final decision, no Hawkeye, no second opinion. The game is over. Gazing at the clay mark that shouted the truth to everyone in the room, Alex stood frozen in place. In complete silence, she turned on her heel, walked slowly to the bench, and packed her belongings. However, something inside her exploded. It was more than just her spirits. She had faith in the game. She was defeated. However, was this a crime or a defeat? The answer came in the form of a court document that rocked the sport. During the post-game press conference, Eala stayed dry-eyed. No yelling or frenzied accusations were exchanged. There was a smoldering stillness behind the microphone that was more powerful than any outburst. "I came to compete. To play a fair game, I came. That wasn't fair out there. I'm not pointing fingers at my rival." She fulfilled her role. However, I've never witnessed such ineptitude in officiating, and I shouldn't have to put up with it. Despite her cool, collected approach, there was no mistaking the anger simmering beneath. She paused before responding with a comment that would go viral when a reporter asked if she felt robbed. "I think athletes should be respected for their hard work. I didn't get that today." Instantly, the video went viral. Millions of people watched videos of the blown calls as commentators broke down each frame of the dispute. Legends have their say. Billie Jean King called for immediate structural changes, while Martina Navratilova commented, "We've seen bad calls, but this is a new level of awful. The players deserve better." While support wasn't universal, the hashtag number justice for Eala dominated global trends. While some chastised Alex for not handling her challenges more effectively, others supported the authorities, arguing that human error is a natural aspect of the sport. The tennis community fell apart, sparking heated discussions on all internet channels. As their idols endured what seemed like outright prejudice on the international scene, Filipino fans were especially incensed. Social media timelines were inundated with petitions, protest videos, and forceful appeals to boycott the tour. The entire leadership of women's tennis was coming under increasing pressure, not just the individual umpires. Then, as the scandal was about to fade into the background, Alex's legal team shocked everyone with a bombshell. She was suing the group for what the petition described as purposeful negligence that resulted in the theft of opportunity and money, not for emotional distress or slander. For weeks, the headline that they used in the brief was broadcast on sports news. Match theft. Few would dare to take the WTA to court. However, most players weren't Eala. Furthermore, no one had any idea how terrible the dirt her lawyers unearthed would be. The case was filed in a global sports court, and the tennis community as a whole gasped in shock as information began to surface. This was not a complaint about poor decisions. Her team had built a case that was lethal, accurate, and surgical. The main contention is that by ignoring adequate technology and training, the association disregarded its obligation to deliver a fair fight. Hawkeye systems were standard and utilized at majors, according to the brief. However, the sanctioned Luxembourg Open chose to forego the technology in order to save money. Despite her star power and the importance of the match, Alex's crucial match took place on an outer court without the use of technology. However, missing cameras was only one part of the rabbit hole. Her team provided proof that the line judges and umpire had a habit of making bad calls. Emails that were subpoenaed demonstrated that the company had previously received complaints against this particular crew. They were still scheduled for high-pressure games, though. According to the lawsuit, the loss was directly caused by her administrative indolence, which cost her future wages and ranking points. The financial impact was quantified. When her winning streak ended, the suit totaled the lost prize money, appearance fees, and sponsorship bonuses. However, the correspondence between the governing body and tournament directors was the smoking gun. The text implicitly encouraged officials to forego lengthy debates by implying pressure to keep outer court games going quickly. One message was scathing. These games must be completed by 6 o'clock. It's all about momentum. Every major sports publication immediately echoed the remark released by the EA's lead counsel. Let's be quite explicit. This has nothing to do with one poor call. The systemic failure to protect the competitors is at issue here. It is not a coincidence when a governing body prioritizes expediency over equity, assigns officials with a track record of incompetence, and denies players access to the technology that ensures justice. That was a well-thought-out choice. Eala is here today to declare that the decision is unacceptable. The word match theft was used strategically. It was intended to provoke. It was designed to change the focus from a straightforward officiating error to one of institutional incompetence leading to real injury. And it was a complete success. All of a sudden, the narrative was not about a single player moping over a defeat. It turned into a vote on whether the WTA was truly maintaining the integrity of the sport. Although monetary damages were sought, the real objective of the lawsuit was structural reform, mandated Hawkeye systems on all courts, strict umpire control, open grievance procedures, and a complete revamping of the relationship between digital accuracy and human judgment. In a battle that would change women's tennis, A had fired the first shot. All that was left to decide was whether the WTA would resist or disintegrate. The association had to make a decision: admit their mistakes or defend a system that is obviously flawed. The outcome of this lawsuit and the future of the entire sport would depend on their response. The WTA's first response was taken directly from their business crisis management manual. It was politically sanitized, defensive, and sterile. Their official press release read, "The WTA remains dedicated to fair play and the highest officiating standards. While we empathize with the frustrations inherent in competitive sports, we maintain full confidence in the integrity of our officials and protocols. We intend to address Ms. Eala's assertions through the proper legal avenues." Read between the lines. "We admit nothing, and we're going to drag this out in court." However, behind closed doors, absolute panic was taking hold. Sponsors were blowing up the phone lines. Broadcast partners were demanding answers. Even worse, the locker room was turning. Other players began breaking their silence regarding their own nightmares with incompetent officiating. The lawsuit had kicked open a door the WTA had desperately tried to keep bolted. Support for Eala began to mount publicly. Anjaber tweeted, "Every single one of us has felt this burn." The locker room wasn't entirely united, though, as a few top-ranked veterans whispered that Eala was going too far, that lawsuits were nuclear options, and that human error was just part of the game. One former Grand Slam champion, speaking on condition of anonymity, told a reporter, "Bad calls happen." Coco Gauff posted a video explaining why technology is the only remedy for human error. Jessica Pagula shared a personal horror story of a match that was flipped by bad calls, adding, "If the tech exists to fix this, refusing to use it everywhere is inexcusable. You exchange handshakes and proceed." This case creates a dangerous precedent. The battlefield in the media was equally divided. Eala was praised by some columnists as a brave whistleblower who exposed the corruption. Others called her a bitter loser who couldn't accept defeat. Think pieces with headings like "Is Eala saving tennis or killing it?" and the delicate balance between advocacy and entitlement were all over the internet. with a hazy statement stating that it supported fair competition and was working with organizers to evaluate standards. The main sponsor of the Luxembourg Open subtly started to disassociate itself from the radioactive consequences. Getting us out of this blast zone was corporate code. In the meantime, the WTA hired a prestigious law firm that is known for protecting major sports organizations from existential dangers. They filed a petition to dismiss Sunaway, claiming that players forfeit their ability to sue over game regulations by participating in a tournament. The Eala team retaliated, claiming that waivers do not shield a company from egregious carelessness and deception. Tennis fans around the world were enthralled as the case sped toward a full hearing. This was more than just sports news. It was a cultural hotspot, a discussion about accountability, power relations, and whether or not workers could hold the organizations that run their lives to higher standards. The dam then burst. An investigative reporter received a collection of internal documents from an unidentified source inside the WTA. There was a smoking pistol among the files. After reviewing the match in question in private, the WTA came to the conclusion that there were several serious mistakes made. The internal investigation identified urgent policy changes to prevent it from happening again and suggested suspending the authorities responsible. However, the report had been concealed by the WTA. It was never made public. The outcry was swift and vicious when the disclosure made headlines. How could they support their officials in public while acknowledging their failures in private? With the blazing gun in their hands, proving she was correct all along, how in the world could they defend themselves? The association faced the music, backed into a corner. The secret was revealed. They had known about the issue since day one. Validity was no longer what was demonstrated. Whether they would truly take over and act morally was the true unknown. The fallout forever changed the sport. The organization ultimately released an update 3 weeks after the breach. This was no ordinary PR jargon. The spin and excuses had vanished. This was straightforward, honest, and unvarnished. On closer examination, we acknowledge that the calls made during the disputed match contained serious errors. We also did not adequately address her complaints. We promised to get better. In a legal sense, they did not enter a guilty plea. A complete confession of guilt was prevented by the legal counsel. However, they did reveal a significant revision to the rules. Electronic line calling technologies like Hawkeye are now required in all courts, not just the main stages. Additionally, they established a new third-party oversight organization for officials to guarantee that those involved have a voice and opened a formal protest channel with transparent findings and open investigations. Even while it didn't fulfill all of Alex's desires, it was nevertheless a huge advancement. More than anything else, it was a candid acknowledgement of the basic flaws in the previous method. The court case was settled in private. Insiders say she left with a check and, most importantly, a sincere apology, but the specifics are kept under wraps. Her formal statement was unambiguous. A conflict between the tour and myself was never anything I want. Making sure the next generation doesn't have to go through what I went through is my aim. I appreciate the advancement. However, this triumph has far-reaching effects that go beyond a single individual or institution. It generated a worldwide discussion. When poor management destroys their livelihood, do rivals have the right to file a lawsuit? Is it reasonable for leagues to have complete control over the players who generate revenue? And why accept errors when machines can be flawless? The rest of the sports community is paying attention. The same questions are being asked by athletes everywhere. The gold standard for retaliation in professional sports is now this tale. As for the celebrity herself, she's back to her best, displaying the abilities that captured our hearts in the first place. She's going up the ladder once more. She performs knowing her struggle wasn't fought alone, and her swagger is back. For every female who picks up a racket after her, she cleared the path. She should have just eaten her pride, accepted the loss, and remained silent, according to critics who still exist. She is considered a legend by many, nevertheless, because she had the courage to risk her job and connections in order to act morally. The middle is probably where reality lies. She is neither an angel nor a monster. She's just a competitive person who wouldn't stop talking when things weren't fair. and the sport was changed by that intransigence. Missed shots and legal filings are only one aspect of this whole story. It's a story about bravery, accountability, and the transformation that only happens when you seek improvement. She has made the game better. The technician is more proficient. The oversight is more stringent. Professionals are aware of their power. Will there still be drama? You wager. Are referees ever going to be perfect? Not sure. However, she has leveled the playing field, and that alone is a triumph. Speak up if the story made you think or feel something. Subscribe to Smash. Tell me below, was the lawsuit excessive or warranted? Forward this to friends who enjoy a classic David versus Goliath story, the game or fairness.